to the love that has laid hold of me. I'm holding on to the love that has laid.
Good morning, FCF. Thank you for taking this time to allow me to share God's truth with you. We've been on a theme now for some time, and we've called it The Secret to Adequacy. Human beings were never meant to be adequate apart from Christ our Creator. So much of the time when we feel inadequate, it's because we haven't learned how this partnership with Christ our Creator was supposed to work. It was meant to be a constant. It was meant to be as normal as breathing. Today we're going to look at a circumstance that the Apostle Paul, probably the greatest servant of God that ever lived, that he found himself in. And it was a kind of a perplexing thing because it was a circumstance that he hated. It was a circumstance that he didn't want to be in, that he didn't want to have to deal with. It brought him sort of to that breaking point. And yet he discovers that this was a secret pathway to a new level of adequacy. Adequacy in representing Christ, adequacy in communicating Christ, adequacy in building others up in Christ, and so forth. So let me read to you from 2 Corinthians chapter 12. This will be familiar to many of you. And I'm going to start. But by the way, when you start out chapter 12, Paul talks about, and he's probably talking about himself, a man who 14 years ago was caught up into the third heaven, which is the presence of God, and saw things that no man could even begin to utter. So he goes on. So that's kind of the context, that he doesn't say he was the guy that was caught up into heaven, but it sure sounds like he was when you hear verse 7. To keep me from becoming conceited, think of that. Paul says, to keep me from becoming proud, conceited, arrogant, same word, to keep me from becoming conceited, because of these surpassingly great revelations, caught up into heaven, saw it with his own eyes. There was given me, notice it was a gift, it was given to him. He says, there was given me a thorn in my flesh, a messenger of Satan to, get these last two words, to torment me. Pause. Paul says, a gift, because it was given, he didn't ask for it, he didn't buy it. It was given to him, this thorn in his flesh, because of the great revelations that God had given him. And God did not want him to become conceited, arrogant, so that he would not be effective. And so he was given these great revelations. And so now God didn't just give him the great revelations, God gave him the thorn. And the thorn was to keep him from becoming conceited and arrogant, so that he could continue to be effective. And he says, this thorn, he said, it was given to torment me, and it was a messenger of Satan. Now, there's been all kinds of speculation. Theologians have speculated for hundreds of years. What was the thorn? What was the thorn? Was it Paul's bad eyesight? Was it his physical pain from all of his beatings for Christ and things like that? What was it perhaps a mean mother-in-law? Even though we don't know that Paul was married, every indicator is that he was never married at all. There's all kind of speculation. Was it a Jewish cohort that just constantly harangued him and persecuted him? We know that there was a lot of that. Who knows? God has not chosen to tell you and I what the thorn was, what the messenger of Satan was. Perhaps it was something completely interior. We just don't know. What we do know, it was given to him. It was given to torment him. Hear this, follower of Christ, faithful follower of Christ. And it was given to torment him so that he would not become conceited, because to become conceited, to become arrogant would make him ineffective. Let me read on. So he goes on and he says, three times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me. Now here's the greatest servant of God on the planet. And he says 3 times, please, God, please, I don't want this. It's killing me. It's wiping me out. I can't deal with it. Please take it away. 3 times he asked the Lord. Here's the Lord's answer. Verse 9. But he, meaning Jesus, said to me, My grace is sufficient for you, for my power, God's power, Christ's power, is made perfect in weakness. Whoa. Well, so here's this new revelation about the secret of adequacy. Jesus tells Paul that the secret to your adequacy is when something is sufficient in your life to make you painfully aware of how weak you are. Something that makes you feel inadequate and torments you and brings you to the end of your rope so that you're pleading with God for some relief. Paul says that weakened state was in fact the most advantageous state for the power of Christ to work out through Paul. Listen to what he goes on to say. He comes to some conclusions about that. It's amazing. So Jesus says, my grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in weakness. Then Paul says this, therefore I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses so that, why will you boast about your weaknesses? So that Christ's power may rest on me, be at home on me. Then he goes on in verse 10, he says, that is why for Christ's sake, I delight. Now listen to this list, folks. He says, for the sake of Christ, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. Why, Paul? Are you crazy? Are you a masochist? Why would anybody delight in weaknesses, in insults? Nobody likes to be insulted. In hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. Who wants difficulties? Here's what he says, for when I am weak, then I am strong. My grace is sufficient for you, says Jesus, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Paul learned perhaps the greatest secret of all, the most unpleasant and pleasant secret simultaneously. It is this, is whatever it is. For Paul, it was this mysterious thorn in the flesh. We don't know what it was, this messenger of Satan. Whatever it is, though, that brings you and I to the place of brokenness, brings you and I to the place where we hit that wall and we say, I can't deal with this. I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't take this. It's too much for me to endure. Please, Lord, please help. Please take this away. Whatever brings us to that place of weakness, extreme weakness, opens the floodgates, says Jesus, for his power to flow into us and through us. Because when we are in that weakened state, we cling, we hold, we get a fierce grip on the Spirit of God. And that brings a deeper connection so that his power can work through us. We stay in a humble state. We stay in a broken state. And in that state, the truth about Christ, the truth about life, the love of God, the gentleness of God, all of it shines through best. Listen, Jesus shines through broken, humble vessels best. And that is a great secret of adequacy. Therefore, whatever brings you and I to the place of brokenness and weakness that causes us to cling to Christ because we just don't feel like we can endure it. Paul says he learned that's the secret of real power. Now, you might ask yourself, do I want to live a life where the power of God, the full power of God finds its easy expression in me and through me? Because God told Paul, if you want my power to be expressed through you, if you want my adequacy to become your adequacy, you must embrace your inadequacy, even if it means the thorn, the torment. That's the secret of adequacy. I hope you can accept this deep, wonderful, puzzling lesson in the secret of adequacy.
I'm holding on to the love that has laid hold of me. I'm holding on to the love that has laid